Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Hannover, the Mega-Grober this time. And I'm gonna have a really good game in this thing, which doesn't happen very often since Hannover can struggle a little bit at Supership's tier. It just doesn't have the range and the guns aren't quite consistent enough to be all that impactful in most of these games. We've all played high tier, we know how difficult it is to push up. Hannover, of course, is amazingly powerful at close range. It's just very difficult to get to close range these days. It's really the main issue with it. You're really relying on RNG when it comes to dealing with ships at longer ranges. So we might get a little bit lucky in this one, let's just say. But before we deal with this Hannover game, I do have a question to ask you guys. It is Christmas season. Merry Christmas to all of you, by the way. And I opened quite a few of the Christmas crates. Being a CC throughout the year, we do get a lot of doubloons from the events and just straight doubloons every month to buy premium time, battle pass, that kind of thing. So I have quite a bit saved up. I didn't pay for any of these crates myself, even got gifted some as a bit of a Christmas present for being a CC. Do you guys want to see the opening of that on the channel or not? That's my question to you guys. I'm a little conflicted on it personally. I don't really want to be advertising loot boxes to people, but at the same time, that can be an interesting video. If you guys would like to see that, let me know. I did get quite a few ships. I think I opened up over 120 crates, something like that. Got quite a few ships, although the pulls we got were not the best ships, let's say. It might be an advertisement of maybe not spending money on the Christmas crates. We'll see. But let me know what you think. I'm kind of conflicted on it personally. I don't need to make a video on it, but if you guys do want to see that, let me know what you would think. But getting back to the Hannover here, we of course have 483mm guns, which means we're going to be overmatching through 32mm of armor. That's the major threshold we're hitting here with these guns. And even though our dispersion can suffer a lot of the time, that's kind of a theme of German battleships, of course, with that level of overmatch and the alpha damage that these guns do actually have, which is like 17,000 damage, which is a lot, we should be doing some really good damage, even at these longer ranges. You'll notice we got very lucky to overmatch through that cruiser's bow into his citadel. Very lucky shot there, certainly. But we're doing not too much damage to broadsides all the time either. So that's one of the reasons you don't see me playing Hannover all that much, or German battleships in general. I find them a little bit frustrating to play, let's just say. You do have to play them like this though these days. Anytime I'm trying to run a brawling focused build, which this kind of is a brawling build of some kind, we do have manual secondaries and most of secondary range, although we do have main gun accuracy on our upgrade slot. So that means we miss out a little bit on those secondaries, but not too much. It's for games like this, though, that we need that. Even with that extra accuracy on those main guns, it can be a bit of a problem. Broadside Napoli here, although we all know how Napolis are, they can turn pretty quickly. Might be a little bit difficult for us to deal any damage to him here. Shells, unfortunately, go a little bit low, and we're going to have a tough time dealing with that Napoli pretty much the whole game, to be honest with you. He was playing it quite well, and we were not getting the dispersion we needed to. So that is going to be a tricky thing to deal with. Also, submarine on the flank. Notice how I'm just kind of running away from there. I am still trying to help with the ASW planes that Hannover has, but perhaps a bit selfishly on my part, I've kind of just decided to run from subs. Whenever there's one on my flank, I've decided that I'm just going to run away from it. Just because, for my own mental health, I suppose. They're just that frustrating for me personally. Maybe I should do a better job of handling that, or maybe I can just run away from them and then that way I don't have to deal with them. That's kind of what I've been doing. That would be my recommendation to you guys as well. If you're finding them very frustrating, just start running away from them. I know this is just horrible advice. This goes against everything I usually say for getting better at this game and playing well for your team, is to always just go to and play at the side you spawn at. This is a standard battle game, so there's no caps, but play the cap you spawned at, essentially, is usually my advice to people. But I think I am willing to bend that rule for submarines, for myself and for others. I don't blame you guys for running from subs, and I hope you won't blame me for running from them as well. Fortunately, it does look like our teammates will be able to take them out, and we are going to take a rather aggressive position here, trying to stay bow in. Notice we actually haven't used our secondaries at all this game, which is a little sad. Another reason that I maybe don't play these secondary battleships all that much anymore either. I feel like whenever I'm playing them correctly or well, I'm usually just never in secondary range with them. That is often the feeling I'm getting, where I want to be playing, let's say, 15 kilometers away from the enemy team. That's kind of a comfortable distance where we can disengage if we start to get focused quite heavily. We start to lose a lot of HP, we can disengage and still recover. But we're also close enough that we are supporting our team rather well and hopefully able to actually do some damage with our main guns. But 15 kilometers means we're not really getting any value out of the secondaries here on these battleships. So you may as well play something with better concealment or better armor schemes, that kind of thing, that allow you to play those positions a little bit better. Better concealment, for example. And you might think, Hanover, what has better armor scheme than Hanover? In my opinion, almost every battleship, because Hanover has this giant superstructure. And I think you get farmed very heavily through this superstructure on the Hanover, so much so that it kind of just negates the advantage that the hull has of being rather large but having a lot of armor on it. So it shatters a lot of HE and a lot of AP is going to bounce. Not a lot of options to overmatch through the bow either with this armor scheme, but it's just got this giant weak point of a superstructure. So everyone just aims up into that and they don't really care. We do manage to get our first kill though, which feels pretty nice. Getting a Schlieffen out is very, very good for the late game. A healthy Schlieffen pushing late game is very, very scary. Still this Napoli to deal with. Again, like I told you guys, he's going to be painful for us to deal with. He's been playing quite well and angling a ship and not taking very much damage from us. Broadside Iowa though. Very dangerous though to deal with a daring here, bow in. We could eat a ton of fire damage. You probably noticed already that I don't actually have fire prevention in this game and might be wondering about that. This patch I just kind of decided to not take fire prevention. We of course got some commander skill changes recently when it comes to battleships, giving us updated Furious, updated heavy AP, things like that. Updated 3rd tier heal skill that gives us an extra heal after 2 million potential damage received. I'm trying some of these things out and I'm trying to not take fire prevention, and to be honest with you, it's going quite well. And this is gonna sound weird, but I'm actually enjoying my battleships not having fire prevention. It's an extra 4 points I can put into something else rather easily these days. That was a pretty nice slap though. As much as I've been complaining about Hanover guns and German guns, they still can do something. That alpha damage is rather extreme on these large caliber guns, and if we do manage to hit citadels like a broadside Iowa, that is going to do a ton of damage. But the idea behind no fire prevention also means we're trying to play around that 15 kilometer mark. Nice little blind shot there to grab us that Iowa kill. Very, very nice to see. Not always going to hit a blind shot, but hey, I will definitely take it in this game. We are winning this one, but we're under a lot of pressure. Our team's won the other flank, but it's going to take a while for them to actually get into this battle and impact it over here. And we're a little bit low on health, but some of our teammates are pretty low over here too. Palmer nearby me, as well as the Hindenburg in the back. You know, we're pretty low on this flank, so it's this game could easily swing in the enemy team's favor if we were to go down. There's quite a few kills here they could clean up rather easily. But Hanover will survive just barely here. Used our damage control on the fire and potentially the torp coming in. A little worried about taking a flood there. So I decided to use the immunity period we usually get with our damage controls. And 11 seconds, 8 seconds now until our heal. And that should hopefully keep us alive. You might have also noticed that we actually got another heal charge given to us when we crossed that 2 million potential damage threshold. So these new skills are rather interesting. So for 3 points, you still are getting 5 heals on your battleship. So you're essentially saving 1 skill point by doing that. And I find that rather interesting. Instead of taking the 4-pointer, take the 3-pointer. And in the games you need it, which, let's be honest, the games you need an extra 5th heal are probably the ones that go rather long, and those ones typically are going to be tanking over 2 million potential damage in these higher tier battleships in order to even get to that 5th heal. They typically won't even be worth it if you only have 1 million potential damage, even in a longer game as a battleship. So that's kind of how I'm viewing that skill. I'm enjoying it. If I have an extra point that I just don't know what to do with, I'll still take the 4-pointer because it does guarantee that heal, and it buffs them slightly, adding to their duration a little bit. So they are better, but that extra skill can be used somewhere else. And combined with that removal of fire prevention on some of my builds, at least this patch, we are actually able to take some other skills, giving us our secondaries a little easier, letting us take concealment. As always, we do want to take concealment on a lot of these battleships. Surprising an enemy cruiser that's broadside is always going to be better than a cruiser who knows exactly where you are and you're spotted the whole time and you take a shot at them. It's a lot easier to dodge something like that, I think. So taking concealment can be pretty nice. Although, maybe if there's a lot of carriers in your games, you're just spotted anyway. There's a lot of different ways that you could be building a commander. Unfortunately, we do actually end up missing that Napoli yet again. Very, very difficult target to deal with, that Napoli player. So, gonna take another blind shot in an attempt to take him out here. We really do need to deal with him on the flank to hopefully open this up for us a little bit more. Our team, though, finally is getting over towards their home cap as we do take him out with a blind shot. So, rough dispersion. He's dodging all our shells all game, doing a great job, and then the random Hannover worst dispersion salvo that's a blind shot takes him out somehow. Poor guy got pretty unlucky there with that last salvo. But we do take him out in a very lucky way, so I'll take it. It's going to allow us to push up and apply a little bit more pressure again onto the enemy team here. But don't get me wrong when it comes to fire prevention from this video. Don't think that I think it's a bad skill. I think it's a really, really powerful skill. I just think a lot of the times that I am using fire prevention, I'm usually in a situation where fire prevention isn't the difference maker, where I'm alive or dead. If I push in and I overcommit to something, fire prevention's not going to keep me alive these days. I'm going to die anyway, regardless of if I have fire prevention or not. And if I'm playing a little further back and playing smart, playing well, fire prevention isn't really keeping me alive in those situations either. Really, it's not really doing a whole lot if I'm playing in a reasonably safe position. I can still take some fires at this, 15-ish kilometers of range, but I'm able to disengage is the idea. So if we're able to disengage, then we don't necessarily need to rely on fire prevention to keep us alive. That's kind of the thought process, at least right now. I'll probably be taking fire prevention in the future, though, don't you worry. Just for this patch, I thought I would try it just to see what I think. And surprisingly, it's less important than I thought. I kind of overvalued it, perhaps. I kind of said it's just an auto pick, and maybe it isn't anymore. Or isn't these days, at least. Unfortunately, no citadels on this Satsuma here. I was pretty disappointed by that, I'll be honest with you. Still a great game. 230,000 damage is amazing. But I'd really like to see some citadels. And we actually managed to get our front guns off just before we die. And it's over, pens. So you get some serious extremes when you're playing a German battleship. You can get that Iowa kind of salvo, or you can get these salvos where it just does nothing to people, which is a little bit frustrating. But still, a very, very solid game out of the Hannover. Less focused on the secondaries. We did some more with our main guns there. We managed to tank for quite a while, but playing positions that are a little further away, not focusing on those secondaries as much. And it's a little unfortunate. I would like to focus on secondaries more, to be totally honest with you, but high tier doesn't really allow it these days. As for the build here on the Hannover, we can finally take a look at it here after that game. It's a weird one, but this is kind of how I've been building my secondary battleships right now. Not taking fire prevention, but we are able to grab both the secondary upgrades. We want Adrenaline Rush for our DPM as we get lower in HP. Improved Repair Party Readiness is providing that 5th heal in games where we need it. I think a lot of those games where we only use 3 or 4 heals probably are games where we don't have 2 million potential damage. Anytime we need that 5th heal, like I mentioned, we probably already have 2 million potential damage, at least at these higher tiers. That's kind of my thought process behind it. But what that's doing is allowing me to take Emergency Repair Specialist as well as Preventive Maintenance. On other ships, I might take something like Gun Feeder. I might take Consumables Specialist, depending on the consumables we have. But you could just run Emergency Repair Expert as well, or Fire Prevention, to be honest with you, too. Preventative maintenance is excellent this patch as well for secondary builds. Adding that ability to buff your secondary survivability is very, very nice as well. Concealment, I mean, it's 15 kilometers of concealment on this ship, so maybe it's not even that worth it to run a full conceal build since you're spotted pretty quickly anyway. It's such a massive ship. But the idea is we're playing more mid-range, long-range stuff, playing a little smarter these days, and trying to get some value out of the main guns. And if you're doing that, I probably wouldn't recommend Hannover. I'd recommend going with a different battleship. In fact, I probably wouldn't recommend any of these super battleships if you're doing that. Go play a Bungo or something like that. It's going to work out a little bit better. Just because the guns are a little bit more consistent, at least in my experience. See aiming systems here as well as main battery reload, so going mostly for those main guns. We still have decent secondary range and accuracy here, but not getting that 12.5, only 11. But we can use our combat instructions to gain, I think it's 12.2 or 12.3 kilometers of range, something like that, when we use the combat instructions here. So when we need our secondaries, they can get that little bit of extra range as well. So it is workable, but difficult to use, very difficult to build for a secondary battleship at high tier and make it work in most games. It can be just rather frustrating, but still a very good match in the Hannover where our guns performed okay. We certainly had some very amazing salvos and we had some duds as well. That's a pretty typical German battleship experience though, so I'm pretty happy with that. Thank you very much for watching. Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.